From the moment I brought my dogs into my house, I worked to desensitize them to certain situations and certain things so that when they got older, I would be able to take certain actions for cooperative care, for making sure they are safe, happy, and healthy, and just to make sure I'm able to groom them and to function as normal humans and dogs do throughout the course of our lives. So no matter if you are bringing in a puppy or a dog that you are adopting, from the moment you bring them into the house, start working toward desensitizing them to these things so that you can safely be taking care of your dog throughout the course of their life. The first thing that I did was work on desensitizing the sensation of me touching their ears. I wanted to make sure that as my dogs got older, I would be able to groom their ears, so brush them out, trim their fur, but also so that I could get in to put medicine in their ears, because my dogs are swimmers. They are going to be in the water. They're going to need drops for drying out their ears. They might have ear infections at some point. And the vets are also going to need to be able to get inside of their ears to take a look during their routine annual visits. So making sure I desensitized for the touch of ears was incredibly important. And I would sit there and I would just play with their ears. I would pet them. I would flip them over. I would open them up. I would kind of put my finger inside of them and move it around a little bit so that they got used to the idea of me actively touching their ears. I would not go sticking anything in there. I wouldn't do any work while they were young, but just the act of moving them and manipulating them frequently when I needed to now allows me to take care of them as they're growing older. Likewise, I am also doing this for their mouths because we're going to need to take care of their teeth. I now, as my dogs are grown up, brushing their teeth. And my vet also needs to get in there to check things. And if they have eaten something outside I need to take out of their mouth, I need to be able to go into their mouth. I have worked very, very hard to desensitize the idea of me putting my fingers in their lips and moving things around. And so when they were little, I was constantly touching their teeth, which was very helpful when they were puppies losing teeth and I had to help them a little bit. It was very helpful to be able to take food out of their mouths or rocks or grass or whatever they picked up outside. It was very helpful for eventually when I started brushing their teeth for me to be able to put a toothbrush in there. And I've talked to you about how I do their teeth brushing, how I desensitize that, and what iterations of toothbrushes I went through to get to where we are now. So I'll link those videos for you. But I worked very hard to make sure that at any given time, no matter what, I could shove my hands into their mouth and do whatever I needed to without getting bit, without them being uncomfortable. And I can do it on command. I actually taught my dogs how to open so that the vets can look at them without them kind of roaring around and causing any issues, because cooperative care was so incredibly important for me. So making sure that my dogs were desensitized to me sticking my hands in their mouth was incredibly helpful. I also worked very heavily on making sure that I could touch my dog's feet. I knew that I was going to need to groom my dogs. I have had English Springer Spaniels my entire life, and their little paws get very, very furry. And if their fur on their paws gets too long, it can stick on ice, it can pick up sticks and debris and things that can hurt them. It can make them lose their grip so that they fall and hurt themselves or slide down the stairs or hardwood floors. And so I knew I needed to trim my dog's nails and to cut down their fur. And if they stepped on something, I would have to take it out of their paw. There's a lot of reasons for needing to touch your dog's feet. And so from a very young age, I was sitting there just playing with the pads of their feet, moving the hair in between, brushing, and I've gone through this in my grooming playlist as well. I would take the tools that I would be using later on in life to groom them, so their razor, their nail clippers, those things, and I would touch them to their feet. I wouldn't turn them on, I wouldn't actually use them, but I showed them the process so they were familiar with the sensation of their metal clippers being near their toes. Or I built up from just touching the razor to them to turning it on so it vibrated, but without actually cutting anything. And it was a several-month process to make sure I desensitized my dogs. So now I can just grab a hold of my dogs and I can clip their nails and I can trim their fur and I can do whatever I need without them flinching, hesitating, or slapping me in the face as they're trying to get away from me, because I worked so heavily to desensitize the sensation of touching and manipulating their feet. And very related to that, I also made sure I desensitized them to the sound of their razors. I knew I would need to groom my dogs. In fact, my dogs have not had an actual grooming yet, but I groom their feet all the time. So while I haven't shaved down their fur, I have been working on their feet. And from a very young age, I would just turn on the razor around them so they would become familiar with it. As I built up, and again, go through the grooming playlist, there's a lot of good resources in there, but I would touch it to their skin without actually doing anything so that they could feel that vibration along their skin, and they would get more comfortable with it. So now when I pull out the razors, they're not afraid. That's something that you also can work on for vacuum cleaners. And recently I got my hands on a dog grooming vacuum. And so I'm building up toward working with that with my dogs. I have one that's still pretty nervous about it, one that's tolerating it, and one that's perfectly fine with it, because I built up that awareness of what that's like between grooming and it sucking in there first so that it doesn't make a mess all over my house. It's a little bit of a different sound and sensation and experience than doing a razor or working with a normal vacuum cleaner. So desensitizing them to that noise, that specific noise and those specific actions, really changed the game when it comes to grooming. I also worked very hard on making sure I desensitized my dogs to riding in the car. From the day that I brought them into this house, I was consistently taking them on car rides. These were short car rides at first, and then we built up a little bit longer. And now when my adult dogs get into the car, I have zero issues. There's no whining, there's no crying, there's no jumping. They get in, they hook themselves, well, I hook them in, and they sit themselves down and they sleep. Sometimes they'll watch out the window, but we're not barking at anybody. We don't have any issues. Even when things like motorcycles go racing past us or big, scary, loud trucks go by us, they are not flinching because they are so desensitized to being in the car. And I have a full playlist on travel for your dogs to help you if your dog is afraid of the car or if they need to level up their car manners, all those things. I'll link that down below. We're not going to get into it in this episode, but making sure I desensitize them to it by taking them almost every day when they were babies and then kind of spacing it out until they got a little bit older has completely changed the game. And now that they're adults, I don't take them all that often to go out for car rides. So sometimes we have big gaps of time in between our car rides. And even so, they have not lost any of their manners in the car, no matter how long it is, because I trained them from the day that I brought them into this house to make sure that they were amazing travelers, and they're the best travelers I've ever had. I've had dogs my entire life, and my previous dogs were pretty good about being in the car, but there was like a period of we have to whine and be upset and distressed before they would lay down and chill. With my dogs right now, zero issues because I desensitize them to it. And of course, if we are desensitizing to different sensations, we want to make sure we are paying attention to loud noises because things will happen throughout the course of the year, from fireworks on the 4th of July and like 3 or 4 other holidays and just randomly in the summer because humans, to different thunderstorms that we might experience or different weather conditions. Desensitizing to loud noises is incredibly helpful. And that can be as simple as just turning on YouTube on your TV to a fireworks show. They have like 5-hour-long fireworks shows and starting at a very low volume so that it's just ambient noise and then slowly building it up over the course of an hour until it is nice and loud and it's just background to what you are doing during your day. By exposing them to thunderstorms via YouTube, by exposing them to fireworks or other loud sounds, sirens, cars, whatever, by desensitizing them to it, by going through something like a YouTube video, we can really navigate them through a lot of those potentially scary situations. So the more you can do it, just to do it, don't do it like the week before the fireworks happen. If you know the 4th of July is coming and you wait until a week before, that's going to help a little bit. But if you're doing it consistently throughout the course of their life, it's going to make so much of a difference in how they're able to function and how they're able to cope with a lot of those potentially very scary situations. So desensitizing to loud noises is very, very helpful. My girls have been really good about the loud noises from the fireworks and the neighborhood and things going on. When I desensitize them to it, it just becomes another thing that they're aware of, but they don't have to be scared of. And it really, really is so incredibly helpful, especially when we come around the holidays and everything's loud all of the time. Drop your questions on desensitizing your dogs to different things. And if you have desensitized your dog to something, please share your knowledge in the comments down below. We want to help build each other up and think of ideas that maybe I haven't thought of, maybe some of us haven't thought of in the comment section, so we can help each other out and really level up for our pups to give them the best life possible with the least amount of stress. We don't want to stress our dogs out. We want them to be able to have happy, fulfilled, and fully engaged lives. And being able to desensitize them to things like car rides and thunder and fireworks and different noises and experiences that they're going to go through in their life can really just make such a huge difference and an impact on what they're doing and how they're doing it. So follow along for daily episodes, helping you to navigate the world of dog parenthood. We'll see you then.